Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gather round if you can. I have a tale to tell you that will chill you to the bone. This is the story of how a brave young lady took on the most scary Facebook group in the world. This group includes Nazis, racists, KKK sympathisers, and, pause for a gasp, men, white men. So gather round and listen to the terrifying tale and how this brave young lady overcome this group against all odds. So this tale begins, as often it does, with a man sending a woman a rather innocuous message. Now, as a feminist, naturally, she was prone to overreacting, as we can see in this next. So, being a bit of a red pillar, the member of anti-SJW that initially messaged Rafaela decided he was going to have a little bit of fun and attempt to flirt with her. I'm not sure whether he was being serious or just having a bit of fun, but this is how the next part of this story proceeded. So after he was done flirting with her and getting those overreactive messages, he decided to have a little bit of fun and mock this woman on the anti-SJW group. Naturally, she found out, and as such, she decided to message him about it after he'd asked her why he had been banned from the group. She initially jumped to the conclusion that anti-SJW was an hate group, and so her next move was this. So, as you know, harassment is feminist speak for disagrees with me, criticises me, and occasionally mocks me for being stupid. Well, naturally, because the anti-SJW group started to mock Rafaela for her stupidity, she decided that she had to shut us down. So her next move was to get the members of Fantastic Feminism to blockade the group and falsely flag it in order to try to have our voices silenced. Now, I guess you find yourself wondering, what happens next? Well, you're dealing with feminists here, so I think the next move will be pretty obvious.
You're fired! No!
So, predictably enough, reports started to soon come in from members of the anti-SJW group that Rafaela had been in contact with various employers, and some of them had been fired, other members had been docked pay and been called through tribunals and so on, simply for the fact that she had told their employers a load of slanderous lies, which I suppose is a predictable move when you're handling feminists. It was at this point that a member of the group known as Michelle Rodriguez tried to get in contact with Rafaela to remind her what a sick and disgusting thing it is to try to target people's employment just because you don't like what they have to say. So, unfortunately for her trouble, Michelle was targeted in the same way. What follows is a transcript of what was said to Michelle's employer. So her employer received this voicemail saying, "I'm not sure if this is in Sketch. I had this phone number, was on Facebook. If this is in Sketch, I have an inquiry about someone that works there. If you could please call me back. My phone number is redacted. Thank you." So the response from them was, "Yes, this is in Sketch. How may we be of assistance?" To which Rafaela said, "Do you have an employee named Michelle Rodriguez?" The response was, "Yes, she is one of our graphics designers and screen printers here." To which Rafaela said, "I just wanted you to know that she has been a part of a hate and harassment group online. This group attacks people they disagree with, and she has personally messaged me. I do not know this woman, but her position with you is listed on her Facebook profile. I just wanted to let you know the way she is representing your company online." To which the company responded, "Thank you for informing us about this issue. We will discuss with her what she shares on Facebook and how she represents our company. Have a great evening." To which Rafaela responded, "You too, thanks for understanding." And the next part became even more bizarre than this. A person on the group made a very off-colour joke about her, saying, "Damn, you'll leave my herpes-ridden girlfriend alone." at which point she decided to go into full retard mode and act as if the guy had actually been advocating for her rape. She then went onto Twitter and took her stupidity even further with this bizarre string of tweets. Trolls were talking about raping me until they found out that I have herpes. Now they think I'm gross. Couldn't possibly imagine why that is. But good, because I had sex yesterday and they had sex never. So yeah, they're still failing. Well, that's a very cool story, Raffaella. I'm sure laying on your back and spreading your legs was incredibly difficult. You certainly deserve a round of applause for that. At this point, Stephen, the person who had made the innocuous comment that set her off on her full Macintosh-style rant, had been kicked from Fantastic Feminism. I think she must have found out who he was. So he decided as one final joke to message her and ask her why had been removed from Fantastic Feminism, and this is what she was responded with. You see, apparently making that off-colour joke meant that he had decided he wanted to rape her. I know, right, these poor feminists. So naturally this led to some members of anti-SJW deciding they were going to start investigating her, and they managed to find out a few interesting tidbits of information. So a group called Feminist Current created an interesting article titled Reclaiming Femininity and Crippling Feminism, and Raffaella's reaction to this article can be described as amusing at best. I'll present a couple of excerpts from the article and then you can decide for yourself whether you think it's actually ableist or not. Link to the full article will be provided in the description for this video. It gets lonesome being a feminist in America today. If you do not bow nightly before a shrine to Beyonce, if you can't accept pornography or the prostitution of women as harmless fun for the whole family, and especially if you're not so gauche as to conceptualise femininity in terms of inequality rather than identity, no one will serve you a seat at the feminist manicure jamboree. You'll just have to go home and brood over strategies for talking down the patriarchy on your own, like every other night. Meanwhile, if cool girl feminists have important work to do, it's called empowerment, and tonight they'll be asserting their agency by giving one other bikini waxes. Another way the unfeminine feminist in exile could pass her long evenings at home with the cats might be to settle in for a documentary or two about the olden days of the second wave, when feminists came to recognise and resent femininity as a contrivance of traits and behaviours imposed upon women by male supremacist culture. Somehow, in those dark days, feminists considered femininity a patriarchal tool which served to convert females into sex objects and domestic servants. Imagine. Platform heels, girdles, and pandering to conventions of fuckability were out, and so too the proclivity for wilting delicately and polite silence. Women in the second wave considered ditching femininity key in charting the course to women's liberation. The theory underlying the reclamation of femininity proposes that the crux of women's oppression has little to do with male supremacist hatred of females per se. Actually, contemporary feminists argue hatred of females is merely the product of a vast cultural conspiracy to suppress femininity. It is femininity that is oppressed, not females. Females are simply targeted more often for oppression because their essence tends to be more feminine. So as we can see here, this article is nothing more than the typical pseudo-intellectual feminist fan-wank about ending patriarchy and freeing women. So Raffaella's response to this can only be described as amusing. Here it is. I called out ableist language on Feminist Current's Facebook and now they're being mad rude. The ableist language in the title though. Feminist Current say crippling means to cause someone to become unable to move or walk properly, to which she responds, I know what it means. Using it in this context can be seen as ableist language, which is problematic. There goes the P word again. Let's carry on doing this, shall we? So Feminist Current responded by saying, I don't agree that using words that mean what they are intended to mean is ableist. I also urge you to take everything at everyday meninism with a grain of humorous salt. So did she take it with a grain of humorous salt? No, she did not. But it's not what it is intended to mean. You're using it metaphorically. Feminism isn't literally unable to walk properly. And everyday meninism, what the fuck? EF is actually a very educational and useful feminist source. I don't understand why you're being so rude when I pointed out a legitimate concern. Those people are so horrible, aren't they, Rafaela? How would you like a little bit of this for your trouble?
Oh my goodness, oh my gosh, I think we've gone full Macintosh. Oh my goodness, oh my gosh, I think we've gone full Macintosh.
And if that wasn't stupid enough, as per usual, with pretty much all feminists of her ilk, we can find ample evidence of Rafaela hating men, as it's shown in these two screenshots. So here we find her retweeting someone saying, "White men are worse than the plague, and believe me, I know a lot about the plague. We need a cure." Well, I'm a white man and I can't say I've ever caused someone to get horrible pustules under their arms, or make their fingers fall off and eventually die, but what do I know? I mean, Rafaela's a feminist with a gender studies degree, so obviously she knows more than I do. And here we see her celebrating the fact that she phoned the employers of one of the people in the group. "Just emailed the employer of one of my harassers. He's upset and crying male tears now. Maybe you should think twice before you try to debate with random women you don't know as part of an online anti-SJW group." So, apparently, Rafaela thinks that men shouldn't be entitled to disagree with women on the internet. What a shocker. And here we see her admitting that she has genital herpes, which she admits she got from having oral sex. And from what I can tell of her, she seems to wear having herpes as some sort of badge of pride. Further evidence, if you ever need it, of what a disgusting individual she is. So it was at this point I became interested and decided to do a bit of further research to have a look through Rafaela's blogs and see if I could uncover something which was interesting. And boy, did I uncover something that was interesting. So our intrepid feminist decided to go to OkCupid and perform a social experiment. Here's what she was up to. I've spent quite a bit of time on dating sites such as OkCupid, and like many girls, as the blog Straight White Boys Texting shows, I've received weird and overtly sexual messages out of nowhere. Warning: explicit content. I decided to conduct a little social experiment and make an OkCupid account as a woman and send men the type of messages us women are so creeped out by yet so accustomed to. The saying, "treat others the way you want to be treated," popped into my head, so I was interested to see how men responded to random messages of a sexual nature. I was a little bit torn at first. Do I really want to bother random people who might be on the site to genuinely get to know new people? But before I was even done setting up the profile and before I had even messaged anyone, this message appeared in my inbox and reaffirmed my reasoning for conducting this social experiment. The guy says, "Hi, blank. I'm looking for a new friend. Would you like to text? I'm in Bronx now. My number is blank. Text me if you like. I have private pics." Well, obviously offering to send a woman private pics isn't the greatest thing to do in the world, but there's not even anything overly explicit about the message. She's overreacting, as feminists are prone to do. And even if you do accept her argument that this was a sexist and harassing thing to do, one person being a dick on a dating site, it doesn't mean that they all are. And so this poorly concocted farce went on. Rafaela sending random men explicit messages, then documenting how they responded. And then I came across this particular incident which caught my eye in a rather interesting and serious manner. So she says, "And my personal favourite, the guy who actually went to meet up with this girl even though he'd only exchanged a couple of messages with her. I googled a sex shop in the area and gave him the address. When he asked for my phone number, I gave him the New York rejection hotline." So next will follow a summary of the messages she shared with the guy. So she says, "Hey, you up for fun?" So he responds with, "Sure, why not?" So she responds with, "What do you want to do?" So he says, "I'm down for anything. What you had in mind?" So she says, "Wanna come over?" So he responds with, "Sure, how far are you?" And she responds with, "The Bronx, around Morris Park." So he responds with, "What block? Hello, are you still there?" Then she redacts an address. So he says, "What's your number so I can call when I'm close?" Number redacted. So he says, "Okay, I'll just text you. What train is close to you?" And she responds with number 5. So he responds with, "Alright, I'm on my way now. I'm about to pull up a couple of stops away." And he goes, "You boosted minds and waste my time. Why would you hit me up if you ain't want to see me? I really hope you die slow now, bitch." And she says, "Really, you wish death upon me for your inability to Google something?" So now she goes into some escapade up. Okay, yes, maybe it was wrong of me to give this guy a fake address and phone number, but that death wish? Totally uncalled for. First of all, for his own personal safety, why didn't he Google the address and phone number? Why would you go somewhere you've never been before to meet someone you've never met before without doing at least a little bit of research beforehand? What if I had actually been a murderer? And on the flip side, what if I really was that girl and actually did want to meet up but something happened to me? Saying you hope someone dies because they stood up to you is a huge leap. You're not the first person to get stood up to, and you probably won't be the last. It's instances like this that demonstrate how women are seen by many men, not as full humans with complicated thoughts and emotions, but rather just as bodies to fuck. And if the fucking doesn't occur, they couldn't give less of a shit about us. So it really takes the narcissism of a feminist to play a cruel, mean-spirited joke on a totally innocent person and still act as if she's the victim. So she says, "Why would you go somewhere you've never been before to meet someone you've never met before without doing at least a little bit of research beforehand?" Something tells me she's sort of misunderstanding the purpose of a date. But there we go. And people don't do research before dates because of trust. You're on a dating website, your purpose is to pick someone up for a date. He's not going to do research because he thought you were a real person. And then she still acts as if she is the victim. No, women do not see men as toys that they can fuck. The guy was angry, very, very rightfully angry, because you played a cruel and mean-spirited joke on him and wasted his time. He wasn't the aggressor. He didn't do anything wrong to you. You just chose to play a prank on him because you think somehow that this proves your silly little quest right about men being unpleasant and treating women as sex objects. No, all you've proven is that feminists are mean-spirited, nasty human beings that play with other people's emotions and act like they're the victim. So that's the end of this story about Raphaela Guntz and her little crusade against the anti-SJW Facebook group. I think once again the whole of this escapade demonstrates modern feminism and modern feminists for what they really are. Nasty, mean-spirited, narcissistic individuals that aren't above abusing people for their own ends and will relentlessly ensure that anyone who dares to disagree with them has their right to free speech taken away and that they are silenced for good. In the meantime, I would like to advise anyone watching this video to stay well clear of Raphaela. Do not interact with her, do not target her, do not message her, because all that will happen is she will attempt to target your employment as well. Thank you for watching Citation Needed, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Goodbye for now.